Today, we're going to go through 4 pieces of how to go from a 7-figure business to an 8-figure business. If you're an 8-figure business owner and you feel stuck trying to break into the 8 level, you're not alone. And most people really don't know how to get there and ultimately have a bunch of different gurus or consultants that might help you. But the intentional piece is that it needs to be holistic. Holistic in terms of the 4 pieces that we'll go through that encompasses all things related to your business as well as your personal life and personal wealth, because that is where your decisions are stemmed from for how you go in business. Now, today we'll break it into 4 pillars. These are going to be company structure and strategy, financial reporting and tax planning, perspective, and repetition. There's going to be a bonus at the end, so stick around for that, because if you ultimately want to be an 8-figure business owner, you're going to be someone who finishes things, right? The difference between 6, 7, and 8-figure business owners is the ability to not only think, start, but also finish what they start. Now, let's ultimately think of company structure and strategy. This is in twofold around the idea where if you're at the 7-figure, you're typically heavily involved. 8-figure, your company is more of the product. So ask yourself, are you building a business that works because of you or without you? So how you're going to shift that is going to be 3 different things. First is going to be defining your growth model. What drives your top line growth? Is it outbound sales, organic leads, strategic partnerships? Having you focus on those things to exponentially have things come to be. It's the difference between 10x is easier than 2x. Great book, by the way. Now, the other thing is to simplify your offer. One irresistible offer is going to outweigh 10 decent ones. So refine the product that prints profit. Profit then allows and gives you the opportunity and flexibility to hire and elevate and delegate the things that allow you to spend more time working on the business than in the business. It also gives you a break and more headspace, of which we'll talk about in the next section with finances. Now, the last thing is ultimately going to be build your future org chart. Not for where you are, but where you're going. Create a structure where each role is accountable for the result, not just the task. So, for example, worked with a client who had 12 team members reporting directly to her. We simplified it to 3 department heads, and ultimately she had more space to think. She was only given the highest, most difficult, challenging things, as well as the biggest, most grandiose opportunities. Separating what the biggest opportunity and the greatest challenge are allows an individual to then separate everything that is not those things and focus on for the biggest ROI, benefit of time, and finances. Now, as you have more finances, you then are going to give the ability for more structuring on taxes and your company itself. This is also part of step 1, where it's the structure of the company, especially as you're going to the 8-figure and even beyond the 8-figure, understanding the structuring of your company so that you can take on funds, what the cap table looks like and things like that is going to be absolutely transformative. So part 1 and part 2 are a little bit overlapped here, and ultimately takes an absolute expert to know this. This isn't just a lawyer. This is basically like a lawyer, VC, and private equity IPO broker dealer sort of combination combined. And it's something that we've incorporated into our group at Private Wealth Secrets that allows you to have the right structuring with the right execution. And again, like we talked about in step 1, the strategy that you're going to be beyond just a traditional marketing type strategy. That ultimately is key, but really is nuanced for the type of industry and business that you have. Most 7-figure earners are going to fly blindly financially. They rely on gut instead of data. So 8-figure entrepreneurs are constantly looking at monthly financial reviews, not just revenue, but cash flow, margin by profit, cost per acquisition, burn rate, things that ultimately they can look to see where things are going. They're also potentially having and should have a fractional CFO or interim CFO, someone who's helping them beyond just putting the dollars and cents together, like a bookkeeper, or who's then reporting on them and doing that for tax, like a tax preparer and CPA. So you want to have someone who's doing the specific financial modeling, projections, and understanding. That could be you, but most likely isn't, because of the expertise that's needed, both from recommendation, but also from experience. So make sure you have that. And again, it's another key thing of why we have that in the group, because ultimately most 7-figure companies can't afford that. And so they need it as a leverage opportunity. Now that we understand our finances, we can then better work with CPAs who have tax saving strategies and other tax saving companies and opportunities which allow you to save on taxes. This is taxes both at the company level, also as your personal financial level as well. Personally, financially, doing things like strategic entity structuring, as I kind of mentioned, doing pre-tax investing inside retirement accounts, or even on the personal side, investing in things like oil and gas or real estate, as well as doing things like R&D credits and a number of other things that you could do within your business, and ultimately not allowing you to only focus on the tax savings, but not understand the implications of the tax strategy. Now, as a seven-figure business owner, you're probably going to hear about mindset or coaching. That's really the biggest ceiling, is your belief. At seven figures, many founders operate out of fear of losing control, fearing hiring the wrong people, fear of outgrowing their identity. Their belief is ultimately challenged. So you need an external perspective. That's why high-level coaching and mastermind environments matter. In my own journey, I joined a group where everyone was doing 10 million plus, and within months, I felt smarter, my problems seemed smaller, and the solutions got sharper. So it's really just to ask yourself, who are you speaking to into your business, and are you taking advice from peers or players? Very big distinction ultimately between you being in the seven-figure mark or the eight-figure mark. Being around more people who've done it and can give you actionable steps of how to achieve similar is going to radically transform you trying to figure it out on your own. Now, the last thing to help you really go from that 7 to 8 figures is really going to simply be repetition. So it's execution and time management. This is where theory becomes traction. You can be around the right people, have the right structure, with the right price, with the right butts and seats, but ultimately it's all about execution and time management on that. It's not just having the vision, it's focusing on the implementation of the vision that has been cast. So every 8-figure entrepreneur has the operational discipline to have the key habits of weekly scorecards for your team, quarterly planning with written goals, time blocking your CEO calendar. Because ultimately, if you're spending 70% of your time in fulfillment, you're not the CEO, you're the bottleneck. You need to move towards, say, 40% more strategy, 30% talent development, 20% relationship building, and 10% administration or sort of cleanup. Set 30-day or 90-day sprints and choose 3 objectives every day. Write down one thing that you would do towards each of those objectives at least, and make your execution your obsession. It's going to truly be how you're going to go from 7 to 8 figures, because 8 figures is not about doing more. It's about doing the right things repeatedly, having the right people in place with the right structuring, with the right tax incentives, and the right finance understanding and execution to ultimately make you go from 0 to hero, or in this case, going from a 7-figure business owner to an 8-figure business owner. You don't need to figure it out alone. You ultimately need help building this roadmap. So drop a comment if you have questions about this. Share your experience if you have gone to an 8-figure company or what that's been like, and ultimately connect with me. Would love to interview and continue the conversation of how 8-figure entrepreneurs can be helping other 7-figure entrepreneurs become more of what's reality, simply because they change their mindset. They have repetition and execution. They have the understanding of the finances. And lastly, they have the right structuring and pieces in place to become what they can be, not what they are today.